Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is Joshua Kahn with your news. In entertainment, a company from Topeka has officially opened their telekinesis theme park in Chamberlain. Attractions include Powerline Hopscotch, an escape room based on the Chamberlain High Gymnasium, and a bar and grill, complete with themed drink specials like the Bloody Carrie, which is a Bloody Mary served with a tampon garnish. Attendees at the grand opening have said, "The park is a real shock, but you'll get burnt out fast." This is Derry Public Radio.
This is Derry Public Radio.
Long days and pleasant nights, constant readers. Welcome to episode 3 of Derry Public Radio. It's me, Ben Graham, here with my co-host, Joshua Kahn.
How's it going, everybody?
And CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And we just finished watching Carrie, the 1976 classic, directed by Brian De Palma, starring Sissy Spacek. You guys can jump in.
You already have. You're just gonna keep rattling off the IMDb.
I spent the entire movie on the IMDb page, so I am ready.
Awesome.
That's perfect.
Good movie. I liked it.
Yeah.
I was the only one that had never seen this movie, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Not bad.
Yeah. Your first impression.
Very 70s.
Yes.
Yeah, very 70s.
Opening credits Bush. Which was a surprise.
Always a pleasant surprise.
Can I just share the first note I made?
Please.
Yes.
What an erotic movie.
If there's one word I would use to describe Carrie, it's erotica.
The 1970s, really a golden age for pubic hair. Huh?
Perfect.
Good times.
I feel like they were trying to trick the audience, like, you guys know what kind of movie this is. Sexy teenagers.
Right. Sexy romantic comedy kind of thing. It's Porky's, but everyone dies.
Well, now I wish that it was that movie. Oh my god, can you imagine? Okay, a version of this movie that the first 90% is a wacky high school sex comedy. Yeah. And then at the very last minute, everyone gets burned down.
Everyone dies.
So where do we start?
Well, since you were the person who's watched it for the first time, the question I have for you is, what did you think about the ending? I'm jumping all the way to the end for a specific reason. Because it's very different from the book.
And iconic. Like, I've never seen the movie, but of course I have seen the end of Carrie. Because if you've seen pop culture in the past, 40 years, you know the ending of Carrie.
Right.
I loved it. There are so many points that felt very true to the book, but the points that strayed from the book were just so much better. I thought. The prom scene, extremely well directed, very cool. I love the split screen. But the end of Margaret White was pretty spectacular.
Did you get the payoff that you were really wanting when we were reading the book, talking about that scene? And
I've thought about that a lot in the past week or so. My strange bloodlust reaction to the end of the book. I'm like, what? Wow, I've really dug deep into my own personality and said, what's wrong with me? But seeing the end of the movie really was pretty satisfying and visually very striking. The allusion to Saint Sebastian and the arrows and being impaled by kitchen implements. Pretty good.
Even blunt ones.
Oh.
Which is probably the most aggressive part of that scene.
That was rough. Was it like a pie or a cake?
It's like a spatula of some sort.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
So, I won't be able to use my baking utensils the same after that.
You just look at them, I could kill someone with this if I had telekinesis. That means I can move things with my mind, mama. That accent. moving. We discussed this when we were watching the movie, that they moved the location from Maine to North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Bates, North Carolina, even.
Oh, I think I was being a smartass when I said that. So I think they were cashing in on Psycho, so they changed the name of the high school to Bates High, and there was something else that was Bates, wasn't it?
The pig processing.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know if that was
like,
also the town. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
I mean, I guess. And they basically used the Psycho riff like 3 or 4 times, which I thought was a weird choice.
Well, I believe, as I said, I spent most of the movie, like I do most movies, on the IMDb trivia section. And apparently the composer for the movie was supposed to be the guy that composed the music for Psycho. But then he died, like, right before production.
Oh.
And so they had to get someone else. And Brian De Palma was like, I need something really distinct for the portions of the movie where Carrie uses her powers, and he did not realize until after he had chosen it that he had chosen the Psycho music. And so yeah, they use the Psycho re noise pretty heavily.
Can we talk about the casting of John Travolta?
Yes, please.
and and just the character of Billy Nolan in this movie compared to in the book.
Ben, did you like Billy this time around?
Holy shit. Okay.
He's just so happy-go-lucky and having a good time.
Just a goofball who's cool with murdering and slapping chicks.
But he does not like to be called a shithead.
I do think it's hilarious that John Travolta decided to just play Vinnie Barbarino from Welcome Back, Kotter in this movie. It's so goofy and unmenacing, like anti-menacing. I hated it. It was the most jarring thing to be like, oh, this dark character that ran down dogs with his car and, hey, don't call me a dumb shit. I'm fucking John Travolta. Get out of my movie, John Travolta.
It seemed like he was in a different movie. And I felt like when he and Chris were in the car and they were driving and she's giving him crap and he's just being goofy and then he slaps her. And it seemed like, I really felt like, oh, in this moment, John Travolta remembered the character he was supposed to be. And he's like, oh, crap. I'm just going to slap her.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Wait, he's like, oh, right.
I'm acting.
I'm a bad guy.
It's, in retrospect, it's weird casting. Because this was his first movie he was ever in.
Oh, it was his first.
Okay. He was actually playing Vinnie Barbarino in Welcome Back, Kotter at the time of this movie. He apparently came to auditions in his Vinnie Barbarino costume.
Oh my god.
So maybe it made sense back then, but now I just could not take him seriously at all. But it could have been worse. I mentioned while we were watching the movie that there was some crazy goof-arounds with the casting of this movie. First of all, the casting call for the movie Carrie was a shared casting call with another movie that came out in the same year. And that movie was Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope.
What?
What? Not John Travolta, the guy that played Tommy, who is fantastic, and also like 40 years old, apparently, originally came to the audition to read for Luke Skywalker.
Wow.
I could see him as Luke Skywalker.
Does that mean we could have gotten Mark Hamill as Tommy Ross?
Oh.
that means there's a chance that could have happened.
I would have also liked that. I would have seen both of those movies.
There was apparently a rumor that Sissy Spacek was originally cast as Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher had been cast as Carrie.
I'd watch that.
I think Sissy Spacek did such an amazing creepy job. I really can't picture anybody else, which is, we'll get to the other movies.
Man. Her eyes are so crazy.
She, even in the scenes where she's happy-go-lucky and having fun at the prom, she has the craziest smile.
There's tension the whole time.
She just got a bad case of crazy face.
Yeah.
Right. So, speaking of prom, Compared to Carrie in the book at prom, I found Carrie in the movie at prom very underwhelming.
Yes, agreed.
The note that I made was that it just doesn't have the same effect. Like, she's being just less weird, where in the book, like, you really see her, like, it's like she's fully come out of her shell by the end of it. Even though she's, like, nervous, she's so much more outgoing. In this, she's still just barely goes further. Like, she's reaching, but she doesn't really get anywhere. And I thought that was a weird choice.
The only reach was that she showed up to prom.
Yeah. And
I did miss that too, seeing her real personality and that she's just this witty, cool teenage girl.
Yeah. And I felt that was kind of lacking. Like, you don't feel it's not as tragic when it happens to her, because you haven't seen that growth. You haven't seen what she could really be like. And it's still tragic and so weird in the movie that everybody's like, they're under the stage and Sue Snell's behind the stuff. Like, they just shoved everybody into the one set piece. And then there's that weird no dialogue section that lasts for about 10 years where there's close-ups of hands shaking on the rope and people being pulled away and
John Travolta drinking a beer under a stage.
Do you think that maybe Sissy was so subdued because she, like, the actress, was feeling nauseous from all the platform spinning?
That could be. Yeah, that platform spinning was unnerving.
Another scene that goes on for a very long time. Tommy and Carrie dancing at the prom and spinning for 5 minutes.
Right. Well, because the thing, I didn't realize they were on a spinning platform, but my brain could not register. Like, I'm not trying to brag, but I've slow danced before. Not trying to call anybody out, but I've done it.
We all know you can dance, Josh.
I've slow danced with a girl before at a dance.
Sure.
Don't sound so dismissive about that.
Sure.
No. But my brain is like, that's not the speed you go when you slow. That's not the speed with which you turn in a slow dance in any time I've ever slow danced, because it's just so smooth and it's so fast, and the camera dollying around them is significantly faster, so you're trying to contrast the two different speeds, and their speed is unreasonable in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a great choice in filmmaking, showing the disorientation that Carrie felt being whisked away into a magical world. That's my film critic.
Yeah, for those of you listening, you can't see, but suddenly a thing of cognac was produced in Ben's hand, and he was wearing a smoking jacket.
I always record in a smoking jacket.
Did you guys miss the interviews and sort of that other side of the story that we got in the book that we didn't have in the movie? The movie was very straightforward. Obviously, that doesn't work as well on film as it does on paper, but I found myself kind of missing that and wishing that there was some either, internal monologue or something.
It really, I think the biggest problem with missing that is Sue Snell felt severely underdeveloped as a character.
Yes.
Nowhere near as interesting. You didn't get her motivation really as much as you did in the book. She was just kind of there.
Well, the conversation literally goes, "Hey, would you do anything for me? Take Carrie to prom." Yeah. Cut to next scene.
And I think the only time I saw them, unless I missed it, making up for that was when Miss D, or Miss Collins, as they called her in the movie, was grilling Sue and Tommy about taking Carrie. Like, what's your real plan? What's going on here? I was thinking, okay,
I did love that scene. That is the whole reason I loved Tommy as a character for that scene. The scene is Miss Collins asking Sue, why are you doing this? What are you gaining from this? And the entire scene, Tommy is sitting between them doing the most teenage boy thing of just being like, but don't look at me. I'm just doing what my girlfriend says. Yeah. Like, Just real great character acting. I loved it.
Acting 101, man. Acting is reacting, and he reacted the fuck out of that scene.
Well, he's like 40. He's probably been in a lot of movies.
But it's just that great of like every time Sue speaks up, he's like, "Oh yeah, totally. We're gonna do this," and then Miss Collins says something, and he's like, "But oh yeah, I guess." Okay. He was stuck in that middle part, and he just killed it. I loved it.
Speaking of Tommy, did I forget something in the book? Did Tommy write poetry in the book? Was that a thing? Because there's a scene in the movie in which this weird-ass literary teacher reads a poem that apparently Tommy wrote, and Carrie says it's beautiful. And it's also a thing in something we will get to later, that Tommy is like an aspiring poet, and I just didn't remember that from the book.
It also comes up in the remake, which we'll talk about after this.
Am I the only one that didn't get more Tommy poetry in my homework?
Yeah, I think so. You're the only one. But yeah, I thought that was a weird choice. That like it's not in the book, and I think they have an English class together.
Yeah,
that's the class they have together.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, in the book. And so that's really
right.
the only reason to add, because also there's interactions with that that teacher being a jerk that isn't in the book.
Yeah. Well, overall, do we have a rating we'd want to give the movie? Because I really enjoyed it.
We can give it a rating if you want. I mean,
Is it blue chambray shirt?
Yeah, more blue chambray shirts.
Sure. Maybe since it's a movie, we'll change it to Stephen King cameos. Something else.
Where were you, King?
Yeah, you really dropped the ball on this one, not showing up.
Oh, he wasn't the well-known, much-loved megastar that we all know and love today.
He could have been filling in with those other 60-year-olds at prom.
Yeah,
who were all
he could have been a
extras.
teenager.
Yeah, the quote teenagers that were extras for the prom. Looked like there were more teaching staff than students at the prom.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely give the movie a solid 5 because I loved it. I didn't realize that both Sissy Spacek and the woman, I cannot remember her name, that played her mother, were both nominated for Oscars for their performances.
Really?
Yeah.
They gave great performances.
Yeah. I would say out of 5, I'd give it a 4. I really like it. The downside, the only reason it's less than is because, and I think in any telling of Carrie, when you lose the internal monologues and things like that, there are moments the story just kind of drags. Because as especially just getting done reading the book, all of that internal monologue's pretty fresh in my head, so I could fill in most of the blanks when there's those pauses, and I could be like, oh, I kind of know what they're going for. But the first time I watched it, I hadn't read the book, and it was just weird choices of dead space. And there were a couple other scenes that I noticed there was just like this weird hanging on this dead space too long, and I was like, why aren't we moving on? The movie's only like 90 minutes. So, I mean, I understand that maybe they were like stretching for time a little bit. Yeah. But there were some weird choices.
Yeah. I would give it a 4 for the same reason. I think if I had not read the book first, I'd probably give it a 5. And that's always pretty much going to be my response, book to movie, because I do usually prefer the books. I understand many of the choices they made, and I think that the actors, with the exception of John Travolta, who didn't do a bad job, just was not in the right movie, I think they all did an amazing job. So, yeah, 4.
That is a great way. He did a great job, just not in the right movie. Yes. So, in addition to watching Carrie, this is odd that Carrie is the first book and movie we're doing. It also is like the most diverse as far as the other media about it. So, we all decided to take on homework and watch the other Carrie movies. So I'm going to kick things off. I watched the remake of Carrie.
2013, 14?
Something like that, yeah. I didn't look at the IMDb while I was watching it then. I'm really bad with like years and things like that. I don't pay attention to it most of the time. And so I watched the remake, and it was really good. Like, especially after reading the book, there are so many little things that are that kind of fan service that I thought it did really, really right. So, for instance, the Sue Snell Tommy Ross conversation that like really brings like the desire for that plan is so well done. And they even, you know, the actor who plays Tommy even does the whole thing like, I kicked a kid in the side once. He's being a dick. Like they bring like those little endearing things about Tommy that you first start to like him.
Yeah.
Like they put in those
I do
little
love
details.
that he beat the shit out of that guy.
just kicked him while he was down.
What a cool dude.
What did that sad silly bitch ever do to you? Like as the counterbalance to the I'm being nice, but what's going on? And the actor, I'm terrible. I should have remembered the actors' names from the movie. But the actor who played Tommy Ross is so endearing that like he's just got like that cool guy charisma, that effortless, and that's kind of how they describe Tommy Ross, that he is the effortless cool guy. He just is. And there's also a scene in their literature class where they were all reading poems, and Carrie read something out of the Bible, and the teacher not only is like winking at one of the high school students in the front row and like making like sexy faces back and forth with her, which is creepy.
Gross.
But he also like starts making fun of Carrie's choice, and Tommy does the same thing where he's like, you know, shut up. What'd you say? Oh shucks. Like does that like play it off, and then they reference that when he asks her to prom and is like, why did you want to take me to prom? And in this one it's like he's like because you liked my poem even though I didn't write it. And in the remake he's like, I liked your poem, I thought it was great. Like that's kind of like they brought in those little things. And the actors who play Chris and Billy were so hateable. They were just and that's another thing in the original, like I don't like them in the movie, but they're not as vicious.
They make you feel goofy. Nothing, kind of. You're like, eh.
Yeah, so they're goofy hiding under the stage, but they are cutthroat and terrifying. That speech about like, this is felony, like your ass will go to jail. That like speech is in the remake. And like I said, they picked just such good moments of dialogue that are almost word for word from the book that were like my favorite back and forths while reading it were transplanted into this remake. And I thought that was like all those choices were so good. Cool. And Julianne Moore plays Margaret. And
that was what I was going to ask about.
Yeah.
Because I fucking love Julianne Moore.
Love me some Julianne Moore.
She is fantastic. And, I mean, Margaret's really, I think, the linchpin of Carrie. Like, you have to have a good Margaret.
Yeah. And they do little things like where, they show Margaret, cutting herself a little bit, or like scratching herself really hard in other instances, and then seeing her hit herself when Carrie's trying to talk to her and like talk her down. And obviously because it's a remake, they could do much better things with the special effects, like sliding her out of the room and all that. So all those little developmental things.
Instead of in the original movie where the special effects are she falls down.
Yeah, she falls onto a bed.
Yeah.
And is like frozen in fear. They do a lot of that stuff really well. And the thing that I think is one of the coolest nods to the book is, as we discussed, the ending of the original is not how the book ends. Well, it's very much the same thing with the remake of Carrie, that instead of the house imploding, they're still in the house, but the rocks and boulders start raining from the sky.
See,
and
that's cool.
Tear the house down.
That's interesting because I thought that's how they were going to end the original movie. I was like, are rocks going to come down?
Yeah.
Well,
I thought that was like
the 70s. So they would have had to actually throw giant rocks
probably
at a
what
house.
They were able to do.
Yeah. And in the prom scene, one of my favorite things, the actress who plays Miss Desjardins. Is that how you pronounce it? I think so. Miss D.
Miss Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miss Collins. Except for they actually call her Miss Desjardins in the remake. You think Carrie's gonna go for her, and she grabs her like telekinetically by the throat and lifts her up and is choking her. And as she's holding her up in the air is when she brings the lights down into the wet floor of the gym, electrifying and killing everybody and starting the fire. And then throws her out. So she throws Miss D out of the room and like saves her.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought like it was a super cool choice, and especially and again the actress who plays Miss Desjardins, she's in so much stuff, and she's so talented.
I gotta look this up.
She's she's really great, and she's very humanizing in that role, and you can tell she really cares. She does slap the shit out of Carrie at the beginning, because you can't let that go. But it was just a really endearing character, and it just made it all the better, I thought. So the remake was definitely a huge positive experience.
Oh, it was Judy Greer.
Judy Greer, thank you. Yes.
How would you rate the remake?
The remake, I'd say that was 5.
Nice.
5
I'll have to
shirts.
go check that out.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I think I've seen it, but it's been a while, so.
Yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Carrie remake.
Excellent. And CM, your homework was Carrie 2, the Carrieing.
I was calling it the Ragening. And I can't remember if it's Carrie 2 the Rage or if I did that in my
sounds
head.
right.
It is Carrie 2 the Rage.
Yes,
I like the Carrie.
This was a 1999 movie. It opens kind of interesting. Someone is just painting the inside of their living room red. And they're painting over just everything. They come across a lamp, gets painted red. Curtains red. And then the red paint is dripping down the walls onto all of these religious figurines. So it's kind of a nod to the original story and how religious Margaret White was. The movie focuses around this child named... Oh, son of a bitch.
Carrie?
Rachel, I think?
That's
I don't
good
know.
enough.
I wrote it down somewhere. And her friend commits suicide. And she finds out that she committed suicide because this group of jocks, who are also like 40 somehow, have created this game where they sleep with girls and then they assign points to each other, depending on the person that they sleep with. So she finds out she's been raided essentially, and this guy doesn't like her. She jumps off the roof of the school during school, in the middle of everything. It was really an intense scene.
Yeesh.
Our main character, though, is really neat. She's not awkward. She's kind of a goth, actually, which maybe that was like the late 90s version of awkward, but she's pretty well adjusted. She's in a foster home, but her foster parents seem like dicks, but she otherwise is just getting by. There was one scene, though, I almost stopped watching the movie because she has a dog, and it's the dog that was with her as a kid, the only thing she has from her life, and the dog gets hit by a car. And I wrote, like, in these big terrifying letters, the dog, and only thing she has. And I said to the empty room, because I was watching it by myself, if the dog dies, I'm done. I'm not watching it.
That is it. That's what I call it.
The dog does not die, but she does end up forming a relationship with one of the jocks, like the nice jock, the one who's like, you guys, this is kind of, the Tommy, this isn't really right what we're doing. Yeah, so it was really interesting. You had mentioned, Josh, that the characters of Billy and Chris were really horrible people. The jocks in this movie are the worst. And the catalyst of Rachel losing it and killing everybody, she's at a house party with all the seniors, and she and the nice jock had made it, and unbeknownst to them, it was taped, and then that was shown at the party. So they lure her into the party by pretending to be her friend, and then they're showing her having sex, like on all these huge screens in this house, and I just kept thinking, that is child pornography. They are all going to jail.
Oh my God, yeah. Jesus.
It's really horrible. It's really bad. And so, yeah, she loses it, kills everybody. I think we kind of talked about that iconic scene. I think a lot of people are familiar. She has this tattoo, and it has like vines and thorns, and that starts, the heart on the tattoo starts like beating, and then the thorns just sort of spread over her body. And the best kill scene was the spear through the guy's groin.
The harpoon through the testicles.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's so brutal.
The actress who plays Susan Snell in the original plays herself in Carrie 2, and she's a school counselor. I think we talked about that earlier.
How did you feel? Did that, now that like watching Carrie now and then having just seen Carrie 2, how does that transition feel to you?
I liked it. It worked. I dug it.
It seemed believable for the character?
Yes, especially not having Sue, I am Sue Snell, that, the chapters in her book, that it seemed to make more sense. Like, oh yeah, I can kind of see how that would happen.
Now, I have a question. Is Sue Snell the only connection? Like, is this Rachel girl related
I'm
to
about
Carrie?
to get to that.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Yes. You hold your horses bad. No. So we find out that Rachel's dad is Ralph White. And I want to talk to you guys about that.
Boom.
I want to talk to you about that. So Ralph is her dad. She was born 3 years after Carrie and her mom died. If she's a senior in high school, it's 1999. So how did Ralph have her?
Well, okay.
Wasn't he dead? Because they got the insurance money.
In the book, he's dead. Yeah. He died. In the movie that we just watched, there's a scene where Margaret is saying, raving, and Carrie says, he ran away, Mama. He ran away with another woman. Everyone knows that. And it was just this delusion that Margaret had that he died or whatever.
That seemed super weird. That was one of the things that I made a note of. Like, that's a weird choice to make a distinction between the book to movie, that he ran out on them as opposed to died.
Yeah, so that was the only thing I didn't like. I was like, this math doesn't add up for me. I don't approve. Because I was thinking, well, we hadn't watched the movie yet. So I was just thinking about the book. And then the final thing that I will add, Sue Snell does die horrifically. I did not see it coming.
What?
Yes. Shit. Spoiler. She goes to the house because she's trying to find Rachel and stop what's about to happen. And she's looking through the people, and some kid is trying to run out. And Rachel, spears this kid's head through the door.
Whoa.
And you just see it. It just impales her right through the face.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. And because she's such this nostalgic character, she's always been there, you don't see that coming, or at least I didn't. I was like, oh man.
And it sounds like she was kind of the Miss Desjardins or Miss Collins analog.
Yeah.
And so unlike in the remake where Carrie makes a point to save her, that's kind of
because she kills the
tragedy.
Shit out of her in the original.
Yeah, it cuts her in half.
She dies hard.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Whatever that design breaks down, chops her through the middle.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Rating. What did you think of it?
I would give it 5. It was.
Really?
I'd seen it when I was a teenager, and I remembered I wasn't sure that I liked it, but watching it again, I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. It holds up pretty well. Special effects aren't bad. They didn't draw me out of the movie in any way. Yeah, 5 stars.
I'll check it out.
It deserves 5 stars for the oldest brother from Home Improvement getting his nutsack shot off.
Great.
It is literally. So I saw that movie when it came out. He's the only
teenager in that movie, except for the ladies.
I saw that movie when it came out, and that's literally the only scene I remember from watching it all those years ago is the fact that you see his dick get shot off with a harpoon gun.
He definitely
at real
deserves
close
that.
range.
I'm gonna have to check that one out, guys.
I'm gonna have to watch it again.
And honestly, hearing you guys talk about these, I am kind of jealous that you guys got to watch these, because my homework.
I cannot wait for this.
While doing some research for our first few episodes, I discovered something I had not known. I'm a bit of a theater nerd in real life. I love musicals, and I did not realize that at some point in the 80s, there was a Broadway adaptation called Carrie the Musical.
Yes.
The production lasted 5 performances before it was closed, and it is apparently widely known as one of the biggest flops in Broadway history.
Wow.
There's a Broadway historian wrote a book called Never Since Carrie or something like that. A history of Broadway flops.
Oh my God.
And being a theater nerd, the second I heard that, I'm like, I have to see this. I have to see Carrie the Musical. That's insane.
Did it pay off?
Well, interestingly enough, I went, and if you go to YouTube, there are quite a few recordings of live performances of Carrie the musical. And I tried watching they did a revival in the mid-2000 teens, I think, in New York that didn't last very long.
Sure.
And I tried watching that, but the quality wasn't super good. So the version I watched was a performance done in Seattle. I want to preface this by saying the people in this performance did quite well. The production was a production. I do not want to be needlessly mean to fellow theater people. So I want to say good job to the people that performed in the Seattle production of Carrie the Musical. That said, the play itself is not good. We've talked about the movies made a bunch of kind of weird choices, differences from the source material that for by and large work. Like the ending of the movie, for instance, being so drastically different but being really good. In fact, Stephen King has come out and said, I like the ending of this movie way better than the ending of my book.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Huh.
Yeah. Some of the changes that were made for the musical, equally strange, not as good.
I wish everyone could also see Ben's face.
Right.
I enjoyed watching this 100%. I'm not gonna lie, but the music, Carrie has her first big solo number at the beginning of the show. The lyrics don't so much hit at oh, I've been bullied, oh, I'm being tortured. It's her saying, one day they're gonna remember who I am. I'm Carrie.
Oh, God.
They're gonna remember me. It's like, wait, does she just like, they know who you are? They torment you constantly. It's just strange. The relationship between Carrie and her mother, oddly loving up until the very end.
Really?
Like, they sing a bunch of songs together. Very oddly. And there's a bunch of like biblical allusions, but like her mom sings about, oh, I just want Carrie to be safe and happy. The way they handle Carrie's powers. Obviously, in a stage production, they don't have the most special effects, but I was expecting during the big finale, at least, I don't know, maybe some wire work. Mm-hmm. Some basic just lifting people.
Yeah.
Sure.
No. It's there's the prom scene is Carrie runs off stage and people run out on stage, do balletic dance moves and then fall over. And then they get up and run off stage. What? And then it's like, oh, I guess that represents them dying, I suppose. There's
wow.
I have so much I could do an entire episode about this musical, and so I'm kind of rushing through it all.
I kind of don't. I mean, obviously, yes, share more, but I don't. I'm just gonna cover my ears because I want to watch it.
You have to watch it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You need to send us the link.
Oh, there's a song when they're setting up for the prom, where Billy and Chris had, these are the actual lyrics, I believe. Mr. Hunty had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. On that farm we killed a pig, E-I-E-I, E-I-E-I, E-I-E-I-O. I almost stopped watching that.
That's amazing.
But I will send you the exact link to the version I watched, because the best part of the entire thing, it is the culmination of the prom. Carrie has been voted prom queen, and it's leading, and the music is building, and she walks up onto the tiny stage on the stage, and you're waiting for the blood, and the music's building, and the music's building, and you're waiting for the blood to drop, and then the music cuts off, and the actress playing Carrie looks out into the audience and goes, "So am I standing in the right place?" And you hear the director off stage go, "Yeah, it's just about there, just a second." And then 2 people in street clothes walk up onto stage and start looking around. I think the version I got might have been an invited dress rehearsal.
Oh, man.
Oh!
Because at the most dramatic part, the part the entire play is leading up to, they completely stop and wander around for a while, destroying all tension. And I laughed forever.
Oh, God,
and
that
then
sounds awesome.
They're like, "Okay, pick it up from this part." And Carrie walks up onto stage, and she's standing, and the music's building, and the music cuts out, and the blood pours all over her. And then there's silence. And then Carrie looks out into the audience and goes, "So the blood's all in my eyes. I can't really see. What do you want me to do for this part?" I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to see Carrie the musical, try your best to get in to the invited dress where they're just working out all the bugs. You know?
Oh my God,
That's
that
amazing.
sounds so awesome.
I feel because of that, I cannot give Carrie the musical a proper rating.
I feel like
will
it
say,
just did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I'll give 5 out of 5 to whatever Seattle theater troupe that happened to be. Good job. You did your best with what you were working with.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
Oh, boy.
And so absurd. Yeah. So we digested a lot of content for this episode, and I'm very, very excited that we did and really ran the gambit of Carrie.
Excuse me, what? Ran the gambit?
Yeah.
Ran the gamut?
Is it gambit?
It's ran the gamut is that phrase.
You guys, it's Gambit from the X-Men.
Yeah, no, we ran gambit.
Jesus
Christ.
Christ.
I watched all of it in a Cajun accent. Yeah. Don't you guys watch everything in a...
She's burning down the prom, mon ami!
We ran the gamut on Carrie.
Yeah.
We really did.
I'm going back to gambit.
You stick with that.
From now on, we're running the gambit on things.
Right.
So now that we've covered that, one last time around the table, any final thoughts on Carrie as a whole before we put this to bed? CM?
I love it. It's so much fun. If you haven't read it or watched any of the movies,
then we've ruined it for you because you've listened to this
episode.
Why
are you here? But no, just do one or both. Yeah, it's all amazing. It's fun.
Ben?
I'm going to go ahead and revise my score from last episode and give it a solid 4.
Nice. There you go.
I think I was a little harsh. It's a really good book. Yeah, it's great.
Perfect. And I would say that after going through all of this material, it made me appreciate the movies, because I'm more of a movie person myself, that I enjoyed them so much more after reading the book, which you always do, but it's such a simple, short story that has so much character about it, and you don't often get something that short and concise with that much character and emotion and characters you'll remember. I'm going to remember how I felt about a lot of these characters and the charming, funny things they did, that kind of stuff. So they feel like more or less very real characters. So I highly recommend running the gambit on all of the Carrie material.
Heard that first here, folks. Carrie, charming and funny. Josh Kahn. Put that on the back of the book.
Yeah.
And erotic. If
And
you watch
yes,
the movie.
If you watch the original, it's very erotic at the start of it. So now it's time to get to our next book. So if you want to join us with our next episode, we are picking up with our next Stephen King book. CM, would you like to do the honors?
Yes, thank you. We are going to read Joyland, and we chose this because it's a newer book, and since Carrie was the first and it's older, we thought it would be nice to kind of jump around a little bit rather than just going, in chronological order. This book was published in 2013. Again, it's called Joyland. We are going to be reading to page 139. The bottom of the page before it begins a new section. There's a little heart there, you guys will see. And this is an interesting pick because it is Stephen King's first attempt at a hard case crime novel. And I don't want to say much more because I have so much I want to say because I've started reading it.
Yes.
So I would like, Josh, if you wouldn't mind just sharing how we're going to pick our books in the future.
Sure. Yeah. So going forward, we would like any of you who are listening, go ahead and email us at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. You can send in suggestions for books that you would like us to read. And until we get a good number of those, between the three of us, myself, Ben, and CM, we're going to each, after a book, write down a book we want to do, throw it in a hat, randomly draw. And so we are going to let fate decide between us until you listeners take it out of our hands. So if you want to leave us to our own fate, you can do that. But we highly encourage you, if there's something you want to hear us talk about, hear us explore, please send us an email. Let us know that you'd like us to do this favorite Stephen King book of yours. And if we choose your book, we'll even give you a shout out. It'll be good times.
If you could just make sure it has chapters, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fucking chapters, man. We lucked out with Carrie having a part 1 and part 2, and part 2 being like almost exactly halfway. I started reading this and I was like, what chapter are we gonna... Oh, son of a bitch.
And for you Kindle readers, that is 43% into the book.
Because I read on Kindle, so I made CM go through, and I was like, I need you to find the halfway point, because CM's the only person who's read it between all three of us.
I hadn't even heard of this
book.
All right, I'm excited. Yeah, I can't wait to read it.
Can't wait to share it with you guys.
Yeah. Cool. I just wanted to take a quick minute to say thank you to everyone who has gotten in on the ground floor of our new podcast. The reaction we have gotten from you guys has been overwhelming, and we cannot thank you enough. But I do want to thank a few of our early super fans who have reached out to us, and we want to give a quick shout out to Bryant Burnett, our number one super fan. Hey, Bryant, thanks for listening. Philip Thiessen, Ashley King, my new best friend. Let's talk about it sometime. Colleen O'Rourke Williams, Rob Page, Moody Judy on Twitter, our Twitter street team. Thanks, Moody. That probably would have made more sense to call you Judy. And then our Reddit fans, Layop92, IW Reds, Treppy13, Matt Steele, Guilty as Sin, and Badass Sasquatch, the YouTube guy. Hope you enjoyed it, man. All right, thanks, everyone. We cannot thank you enough, and hope you enjoy our next episode. Thanks for listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Benjamin Graham,
CM Alexander,
Joshua Kahn.
Long days and pleasant nights.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. We had a lot of fun watching and talking about the Carrie movies. We would love to know which movie you prefer. So leave a comment with the name of your favorite Carrie movie on our Facebook or Instagram at Derry Public Radio or Twitter at Derry Public. If you're enjoying Derry Public Radio, please help us out by subscribing and giving us a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. As always, you can send your questions or comments to our Gmail, derrypublicradio@gmail.com. We hope you'll join us for our next episode by reading to page 139 of Joyland, or if you're on Kindle, that's location 1867. Some of you may already be familiar with Joyland, in which case, read it again! Who's buying a book and only reading it once? Thanks for listening, and good night, readers.